How's it going, guys, and welcome back to another edition of the Kick Report. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Adidas Harden Volume 3. So this one came out all the way back in 2018, right after Harden's MVP season. So I think this is when Adidas was like, all right, let's really lock in. Harden's going to be a player that we're going to have for a while, and really kind of put their heads together to come up with a shoe that suited his play style. And for the most part, I think they did a pretty good job. So with that being said, let's jump straight into cushion. So as for the cushion, I'm actually a pretty big fan of what they did here. To start things off, if I had to give it a rating or like a number, I'd say it would be an 8.5 out of 10. The only thing holding it back would just be that there's not really a good arch in the shoe. The boost feels great. It's going to feature a full-length boost unit, and you really feel it throughout the shoe. Additionally, what's different is that it's uncaged. I know some like the newer Adidas shoes have the boost all covered up and behind the cage, and it's super tough and it feels super hard. But I feel like in the Harden 3 and the Harden 2s, they really, and even the Harden 1s, I think they allowed the boost to be the boost. They even showed it on the outside of the shoe, and I'm a really big fan of that, and especially just the way it feels. Additionally, these would be pretty good for wide footers or people with wide feet. I would say for an Adidas shoe, it is a little bit more narrow, which I enjoyed, but that's someone who plays in predominantly Nikes. These are going to feel wider, so I definitely don't mind that at all. But again, this is the only thing I can really count against it, is that it just feels so flat. So if you have flat feet, I would stay away from picking up a pair. It feels like there's no real definition points and like points of contact with the shoe or with the ground. So that kind of hurts it when you jump into traction too. So it's definitely something to take a look at. So speaking of traction, unfortunately, I feel like this is where the shoe struggles the most. It's going to feature a multi-directional herringbone all throughout the shoe. So herringbone. That pattern's everywhere on the outsole. And it's going to be a mix of solid rubber and a translucent outsole. And that's where I feel like it suffers. Now, the shoe had a bite, but I did have a slip out problem. So you can see that in the traction test, that there was a little bit of a bite, but once I put power behind it, I would start to slip. And I feel like that's due to the translucent outsole. During this time, people were really weary about like translucent outsoles, and don't get a shoe if it has a translucent outsole. And I feel like this is probably one of the contributors to why people felt that way. So definitely keep that in mind when copying these. I know there are some colorways out there without it, so if you can find one, please find it and go ahead and get that one if you're gonna get a pair of Harden 3s. Additionally, as I was saying with the cushion, there's no really like high points or points of emphasis with the ground. The shoe's really flat, so it feels like there's nothing really to bite onto. It just kind of feels like my foot's just sliding out. Now, if the compound was a solid rubber and had a crazy traction, crazy bite, these would actually be pretty good because it's all throughout the shoe. But since the traction is lacking, it feels like that the shoe should have at least some type of like form or some type of mold to where it kind of comes with like points of emphasis on the shoe. Like the Sabrina 2s have like the little circular pattern, which are like in the ball of your foot. Like even the Precision 6s have it, which are a budget shoe. Just something to kind of help the traction, because it's really frustrating when you have that much comfort and cushion in the shoe and then it just can't perform within the traction department. It kind of just makes it to where you want to wear it but you can't. But again, I wouldn't put these out on a dusty court at all. Unless you're like a good hooper and you're pulling these out on a really good court, then these are the ones. So that's where I stand in terms of traction. But before we move on, let's get into that squeak test. It's not really a bad squeak at all, but hear me out when I say this. The way it performs is the way it sounds. And if you get a pair, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's one of those, if you know, you know. As for the materials of the shoe, you know, these debuted at $160, so they're gonna be pretty quality. On the upper, it's gonna be like a knit material, like a tight woven knit, and it feels very comfortable. It's lined with a nice inner plush type of feel, and I don't mind it at all. There's also gonna be a like a midfoot elastic strap that kind of contains the foot and kind of almost feels like a seat belt when it kind of just places my foot right on top of that boost. And it's nice, it's lovely. It's just only if the traction was as good. But additionally, it's going to be like that attached to that midsole strap or that midfoot strap. There's going to be like the rubber comes up just a little bit so where it kind of helps contain the foot. Again, you're going to have that full length boost. Some details, there's going to be some nice, like almost feels like a synthetic leather in the back with the logo. And that's where one of the interesting points of this shoe come up. Now it's gonna be the heel. Now it is very interesting. It came up very high, and it almost felt like too high, like unnecessarily high. But I mean, it's comfortable. It's just really different. It's really plush. So if you have like any pain up towards your Achilles, like the back of your ankle, and I guess that's where this will help. Or if you have any heel pain, these will feel very nice. But other than that, it's kind of just odd, but not bad in any way, just different, you know. Additionally, the laces are a little bit thinner than I'd like on a shoe like this for $160. I ended up tearing a pair of the laces, which is why I have the red laces. Those actually came from a pair of GT Cut 2s, so I robbed these. But you know, not bad. The lacing system is unique. It's on the inside of the shoe, similar to the KD12, but it's just gonna help with the lockdown. And again, I like the materials. They're very plush, feel high quality. The shoe has a little bit of weight to it, but not too heavy like the Harden 2s. Now, if you're stuck in the past just like me and you wanted to pick up yourself a pair of these Harden 3s, I will say they're going about 100 to 130 online. They're a lot cheaper than they used to be. I know at one point, like 2021, they spiked and they were going crazy, but luckily they came back down to earth, and that's how I got myself a pair here. So yeah, if you would like, get yourself a pair, but stay away from that translucent outsole. I promise you're gonna see what I'm feeling. You'll be like, that's what he was talking about. But I will say the best colorway is called the Black Active Blue. Ooh, it's clean. One of my boys had it, so I couldn't get the same colorway, but man, I'm a big fan. Just the clean accents, how the gray kind of ties in with the black and the blue. It's my type. So overall, with all things included, I'd have to give these an 8 out of 10. You know, it's a good shoe and I really like it, but the traction, it matters a lot in basketball shoes, and I think that especially when you're hooping for safety, even you have to have a good traction, at least a consistent one, and I didn't really find that in these. So that's what keeps it out of my personal hoop rotation. But you know, depends on the type of hooper you are, the type of court you're on. Again, this is really anybody's shoe. You don't have to be a certain player to wear it. You could be a shifty guard, you could be a big, it doesn't matter. This is one of those shoes like a KD17 where if you like comfort, then this is going to be for you. So keep that in mind when finding these, and that's why it's gonna hold this 8 out of 10. You know, if it had that better traction and maybe just a little bit of arch support, I promise you these would be one of my favorite shoes of all time. And that's why I rock with the Harden 2s over these, just because of that feeling. I feel that arch support, and I feel the heel to toe transition a lot, and I really love them. But with that being said, that is going to be all for today's video. As always, I truly appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to chop it up in the comments down below. Do you have a pair of these? Did you want a pair of these? Are you planning to get a pair of these? Let me know what you think, and be sure to let me know what other shoes you guys want to see on the way. But as always, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. This has been The Kick Report.